Sylvie of the multiple award-winning The Queen Sylvie Show. You want to expand and get noticed? Then come outside your box and into our world. Internet advertising has a real impact on global awareness and even sales, so let's make an impact together. Offering for a limited time advertising and sponsorship packages that excel your purpose. So contact Queen Sylvie or Smooth Tim for the exciting opportunities that awaits. Yeah.
Are you tired of driving around a dirty car? Say hello to the ultimate solution for your car. Quick Auto Detail, home, work, or wherever. Their mobile car spa will clean and shine your car anytime and anywhere. Their products are gentle on your car's paint, and they use only the highest quality materials. Book your appointment now.
Hey kids, how would you like to hear this on the screen instead of the great show you came to see? That's what you sound like. Honest. Please cooperate and do your part in keeping this theater quiet so everyone, including you, can enjoy it. Remember, lots of adults and kids, too, paid admission to enjoy the show. We must insist on absolute quiet.
Hello, Daniel Caldwell. This is the VA Crisis Response Hotline. We're calling to inform you that your emergency request for in-person counseling for PTSD has been denied. To stop fraud, waste, and abuse, these services will be replaced by VetCare AI, powered by Grok, an X company. President Trump and Doge Chairman Musk, thank you for your service and being part of our efforts to eliminate waste. Have a nice day. Press 1 to repeat this message. Press 2 to return to main menu. Press 3 to leave a message, and an AI operator will call you back if your problem is deemed unwasteful. Goodbye.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's rock.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Tim's Tidbits, and welcome to another Wednesday hump day. And hope so far this week you've had it going pretty well. There's been all kinds of interesting things going on. We'll get into that a little bit into the show. Otherwise, I appreciate you tuning in tonight. Let me get some shout outs quickly to people who were tuning in last week out of the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, Mexico, Germany, Poland, Africa, Ireland, France, and Australia. Hey, folks, appreciate you tuning on in. Thank you so much for spending your Wednesday, well, depending on where you're at in the world, morning, or hey, possibly, Thursday morning. In regards wherever you are, Thanks so very, very much. Let's get into the show just a little bit. Anyhow, hey, we'll stick to the USA here, right at the top of the show, rather. So, you know, what you need to do is probably, hey, grab your popcorn and get ready to, let's talk about the good old US of A and see what the hell's going on. And one of the important things going on, apparently, and most importantly, would be that these spending bills, so that we can keep our government running for the next few months, because as always, you know, they have one thing to do in Congress, and that's pass the budget, and they never really be able to seem to do that. It's always a resolution or temporary thing. So again, we're in the same boat, folks. We have a quick temporary fix to keep our government running, and here's the presentation of what's going on.
We turn now to Capitol Hill. House Speaker Mike Johnson was able to squeeze a short-term government funding bill through a vote by the slimmest of margins. Attention now turns to senators across the building with midnight Friday. That's the deadline for a government shutdown. I'm joined now by congressional correspondent Nicole Killian. So, Nicole, how was Johnson able to do it? Because even getting it through the House was not guaranteed.
Yeah, that's right. Really, the speaker could only afford to lose one vote. But in short, this was a pressure campaign, not only on the part of Speaker Johnson, but also President Trump. He endorsed this bill. He met with members of the conservative House Freedom Caucus who don't always support these types of short-term funding bills. He made calls and dispatched Vice President Vance up here to Capitol Hill earlier today. So all of that arm twisting seemed to have an effect. Massey, Congressman Massey of Kentucky was still a no, but we did see one Democrat cross party lines, named Jared Golden.
There's going to have to be a lot more Democratic cooperation in the Senate. Give us the rundown of how things are going to proceed in the Senate.
Well, Leader Thune said earlier today that he believes a majority of his members will back this continuing resolution. Senate Democrats continue to take a wait-and-see approach, and they really have been keeping mum on whether or not some of them will break ranks to back this bill, even as they hold their noses. Pennsylvania's John Fetterman really has been the only one on record thus far saying that he will not support a shutdown.
So, Nicole, if they is the option they can vote for the House bill, or is there a possibility that there is a Senate alternative? Might that be the only thing that could get 60 votes, and then you've got a discrepancy between the House and the Senate?
Yeah, there was an alternative put forth by Democratic appropriators, Senator Murray and Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, that would extend government funding through April, and this would buy some more time for congressional negotiators to strike a bipartisan deal on a broader package of appropriations bills. But in talking to both Speaker Johnson as well as Leader Thune today, they both panned it. Leader Thune told me it's just a smokescreen and something he's not willing to consider at this time.
Interesting. There we go. Politics in D.C. So, you know, they got the spending bill through the House, and now it goes to the Senate, and they'll see if we can get the 60 votes necessary to pass the temporary funding bill for the U.S. government to keep it going through, what did they say, April? This is crazy. Or the Senate may come back with their own ideal, and then it'll go back to the House and ping pong back and forth until they can come up. And in the meantime, I'm sure that there will be a government shutdown. They'll put all these people on, what do they call it, furlough. So you'll have another bunch of people out doing what DOGE is supposed to be doing, is alleviating government waste, and they're setting it up for some government waste. So we'll see what's happening there. But in any regard, well, let's listen to the Democratic debate to what's going on to this bill from Republican Dan Goldman. Dan's out of New York. He's a Democrat out of New York. Let's listen to his response, rather, to the proposed bill that came out of the House.
I rise today in strong opposition to the Republicans' partisan sham of a government funding bill, which is nothing more than a blank canvas for Donald Trump and Elon Musk to continue their smashing and looting of our federal government. There are too many things that are wrong with this bill to mention in just 2 minutes, including cuts to safety net programs for housing, food, veterans, law enforcement, as well as essential community projects for every district in the country. But what's really shocking is that Republicans rejected any and all input from Democrats, even though they need Democratic votes to pass this bill in the Senate. If you want to go it alone, then go it alone. But you can't blame anyone but yourselves when it fails. If the government shuts down with a Republican House, Republican Senate, and Republican president, it will be solely because the Republicans have moved forward with a terrible partisan take-it-or-leave-it bill. In November, the clear number one issue on voters' minds was the economy and the cost of living. But since he has taken over, President Trump has increased costs significantly and tanked the economy. But it gets even worse. The president has not only failed to keep his promise to help working Americans, but he has enlisted a corrupt, unelected billionaire to slash essential programs that hundreds of millions of Americans depend on. Elon Musk isn't cutting waste, fraud, and abuse. He doesn't even know what he's cutting. And unlike regular appropriations bills, this bill does not include the usual language to fund specific programs. And what that means is that Elon Musk has unfettered discretion to cut whatever he wants. You don't need to take my word for it. The House Freedom Caucus issued a press release supporting this bill because of that very reality.
Interesting. So, yeah, we'll see how that all goes. All kinds of different funding being cut, and especially those that are for people in need. You know, your VA hospitals, your food banks, your housing assistance, and we'll see how it all goes. I think there's a lot of people on the edge kind of wondering, what's going to go on here. So we'll see. We shall see, folks. In any regards, a few weeks ago and last week, we covered a little bit about the meeting that Trump had with Zelensky that kind of fell apart in the White House. And the response from the Russian side of the government was quite interesting, that they felt quite emboldened by all this, that, Trump was dissing Zelensky in that way, and still refusing to say that Putin's a dictator, still refusing to say that Russia invaded Ukraine, and still blaming Ukraine for starting a war. But in any regard, all this is really starting to get a lot of people nervous, and especially your people that are in NATO. And I know you've heard some of the scuttlebutt of, they need to pay their fair share, this and that. But this alliance between Trump and Putin is really starting to shake things up.
Well, President Putin says Russia will not retreat from Ukraine and give away anything that belongs to us. He made the comments while speaking to widows and mothers of Russian soldiers killed following his full-scale invasion. Earlier, his foreign minister warned that Moscow would see any European peacekeeping deployment in Ukraine as an act of
Europe is on the brink of all-out war with Russia, and this isn't just speculation. It's a warning from NATO's former top military chief, Admiral Rob Bauer. In early 2024, he gave it 20 years. Now, the timeline has collapsed. Experts say Europe could face a full-scale war within just 3 to 5 years. And the reason? One man, US President Donald Trump. His latest moves sent shockwaves across the continent, shaking NATO to its core and putting Europe on high alert. With every decision, every statement, he's tilting the balance of power toward Russia. And if things continue down this path, Europe may be left with no choice but to fight. So how did we get here? What has Trump done to push Europe toward war? And is there any way to stop the countdown before it hits zero? Let's break it down. For a second, there was a glimmer of hope that he might support Ukraine after all, but now it seems he's gone full pro-Russia. We know this by Trump practically parroting Putin's lines about Ukraine. Former Deputy Supreme Allied Commander Richard Shirreff has gone as far as to say that Trump is in bed with an indicted war criminal, despite Putin committing the most appalling atrocities in Ukraine. On February 25th, this unnerving alliance was seemingly officially confirmed, with the US joining Russia in voting against a Europe-backed Ukrainian resolution that condemned Moscow's aggression. The US even abstained from voting on its own competing resolution after Europe, led by France, amended it to specifically label Russia as the aggressor. This was a significant blow to the Trump administration at the United Nations, a 193-nation body where resolutions aren't legally binding but serve as a crucial gauge of global opinion. But as of right now, it seems that Trump is only interested in one opinion, Putin's. And believe it or not, he's hearing it straight from the Russian president himself. That's right, on February 12th, there was a monumental phone call between Trump and Putin. A full 60 minutes was spent breaking down 3 years of US policy toward Russia. It took 90 minutes, one phone call, for Trump to end the US-led effort to isolate Putin over Ukraine. But what did these two leaders actually discuss? Well, it wasn't just Ukraine, far from it. They covered everything from the Middle East to global energy markets and even artificial intelligence. It seems that Trump got the full geopolitical tour from Putin himself. And this was exactly what Putin had hoped for, a Russia-US dialogue where the world watched from the sidelines. But the worst part, Ukraine was watching from the sidelines too. The country watched as Trump agreed to start peace talks with Russia. In the aftermath, Trump called this conversation lengthy and highly productive, but he didn't mention anything about Russia's invasion. Instead, he focused on shared goals of peace. Putin, as expected, praised Trump even before the call. He echoed Trump's claim that he could have prevented the Ukraine conflict, painting Trump as the ultimate peacekeeper. Putin even endorsed Trump's stance on the 2020 election. The next step? A face-to-face meeting. Sergei Rybakov, Russia's deputy foreign minister, said that preparations were already underway for it. However, he also said this kind of meeting would take intensive prep work, so the exact date remains to be seen. What we do know, however, is that Putin is all in for a Trump meeting. He has gone on and on about rebuilding US-Russia ties and normalizing the relations between the two countries. But where is Ukraine in all of this? Not only has the country and its president been sidelined, but Trump has openly belittled Zelensky, and the Ukrainian president didn't just sit back and stay silent. That's right, while Trump had been cozying up to Putin on one side, he's also been trading barbs with Zelensky on the other. Though the two have been throwing jabs here and there, Trump's February 19th Truth social media post truly crossed a line. In this post, he blasted words directed at Trump, on the other hand, need no fact-check correspondent. All the Ukrainian president said was that Trump lives in this disinformation space, a clear and direct response to Trump's unfounded accusations. Zelensky didn't hesitate to call out the false narratives that Trump was pushing, particularly about Ukraine's role in the war and his leadership. In his own words, Zelensky explained that all of this was coming from Russia. In other words, he made it clear that Trump's rhetoric now mirrors Russian propaganda. There's no need for deep analysis here for the rest of Europe. Even if Ukraine doesn't become a puppet state, it's almost certainly not getting the security guarantees it wants for the future. This brings us back to the issue of NATO. Putin has long viewed NATO's eastward expansion as a direct threat. The possibility of Ukraine joining this alliance was one of his infamous red lines, and now Trump is actively pushing for Ukraine to abandon its NATO aspirations. In other words, he's playing right into Putin's hands. Trump is also aiding Putin's broader geopolitical goals. One of Putin's key ambitions is to decouple Europe from America's security influence. With Trump's actions, threats, and promises, this seems more and more likely. By suggesting that NATO won't defend Ukraine and forcing Europe to handle its own defense, Trump is essentially neutralizing NATO as a counterbalance to Russia's ambitions. Trump's stance even aligns with one of Putin's more historical objectives, a new Yalta Agreement. If you're unfamiliar with it, the Yalta Conference in 1945 divided Europe between the West and the Soviet Union. By rolling back NATO's presence in Eastern Europe, this region becomes a smorgasbord for Putin, and not just this region, the entirety of Europe. After getting everything he wants in Ukraine, Putin surely won't stop there. His ambitions are too far-reaching for this. The next on his radar, probably the Baltic states. These nations, once part of the Soviet Union and historically considered by Russia as its natural sphere of influence, are now NATO members, which complicates matters. Putin has already set his sights on other regions like Moldova and Georgia, manipulating elections in Romania and testing the waters with smaller incursions. But it's the Baltics that pose the biggest challenge. As NATO allies, they're crucial to Europe's defense structure, and any Russian move against them would almost certainly lead to direct conflict with NATO. This brings the possibility of war much closer, as Europe's collective security would be directly threatened. And remember, NATO will likely have to defend these countries without the US. So to stop Russia and ensure the continent's future security, Europe must take charge and act decisively. For too long, it's relied on the US as the backstop for its defense, but the era of Pax Americana is now over. The responsibility now lies squarely on Europe's shoulders. And
So, anyhow, yeah, it's going to be real interesting in the next few coming up months, folks, so keep your eye on what's going on over there in with the relationships between Trump and Putin. the UN trying to protect its interests in the members. What do they have? What did they say? 193 members of the NATO alliance, and I'm sure 192 of them are wondering what the hell's happening. As you got, well, actually 191. You got U.S. and Russia that probably know exactly what's going on. They had a 90-minute conversation. Who knows what all was discussed? But in any regards, they played a little bit about. Let's get back to dogging out Elon. Let's get back to dogging out Elon. Last week we covered that he had a $400 million contract to develop a armored Tesla vehicle for the military. But in any regards, he suffered a bit of a setback in Europe. And his Tesla Cybertruck has been banned from European highways due to safety issues, and understandably so. And we'll get into this video just a little bit, but talking about some safety issues, if you've been following the news, just recently, within the few past week and a couple of months now, Elon has had two of his SpaceX rockets blow up, right? So I wanted to do a little bit of research on that. I'm like, how much do each of those rockets cost, right? Those SpaceX failures. These Falcon 9 rockets, which is what they are labeled as, cost $62 million a piece. And Elon, with his SpaceX Foundation, has $20 billion in government contracts for this SpaceX program. So, and he's had $8.7 billion paid out to date so far to SpaceX. So let me think. 62 million, that's $124 million that blew up. So he's at 8.7 billion. He's still ahead of the game, even though he's had his rockets blowing up. The U.S. taxpayers has covered your debts. They're even blowing up rockets, Elon. So, but anyhow, hey, let's get into his other issue. Besides that, his rockets keep blowing up, that Europe has banned his vehicles.
Elon Musk has faced numerous controversies, but this latest one might just take the cake. The UK has officially banned Tesla's Cybertruck, deeming it unsafe for public roads. To make matters worse, police in Manchester have already seized one from a driver. But why is Britain saying no to one of Tesla's most talked about vehicles? Is it about safety regulations, or is there something bigger at play? And will other countries follow suit? In this video, we'll break down the shocking reasons behind the ban, Elon Musk's reaction, and what this means for the future of the Cybertruck in Europe. Let's dive in. The Manchester incident, how it all started. It all began with a routine police stop in Greater Manchester. Officers spotted something unusual: a massive, matte black Tesla Cybertruck, a vehicle that's not legally allowed on UK roads. The driver, a permanent UK resident, had registered the truck abroad, likely hoping to bypass the country's strict regulations. But the plan backfired. Police pulled the driver over, confirmed the vehicle was illegal, and seized it on the spot under Section 165 of the Road Traffic Act. Just like that, one of the world's most hyped electric vehicles was officially off British roads. This wasn't just a minor paperwork issue or a technicality. The UK government had already made it clear. The Cybertruck does not meet safety standards and is completely banned from public roads. This isn't an isolated case. It's a full-scale rejection of Tesla's boldest creation by British authorities.
Poor Elon. He's going to lose all kinds of money over in Europe. I'm sure he had a lot of money invested in his European market, trying to get rid of his Cybertrucks. And I'm wondering if that's the same. I'd have to look at that video that we played. The Cybertruck, isn't that the same thing that he's trying to sell to the military? And I think part of the problem was, obviously it's got some issues. And then the other part of it, and I thought was kind of interesting, and can it be disabled by like a magnetic pulse? So all they'd have to shoot it to disable the vehicle is like a magnetic pulse. Boom, done, you're done, right? So interesting. And that's a $400 million investment that the U.S. has in these. armored vehicles, and he's going to be losing some money over in Europe too, as he can't push his vehicles. Anyhow, hey, one more last one here for some grab your wallet is, and I'm going to call this little segment Living Latino in America, and what it's like just to be instantly, let's call it, harassed, profiled, subject to bigotry or what have you. You figure this out, but definitely there could be a problem when you're just a Latino trying to live a life in the good old US of A anymore.
This is what Yenzi Machado managed to record on his phone Wednesday. He says while he was driving to work with 2 other men, he was stopped by ICE agents on Lamont Drive in Manassas, a short distance from his home. He says he was confused by what was happening, why agents surrounded the pickup truck. He spoke with our sister station Telemundo 44 reporter Rose Belis Quinones, who was the first to report his story.
And they just got out of the car with the guns in the hands and say, turn off the car, give me the keys, open the window. And, everything was really fast.
Machado says the agents said the name of a man they were seeking for a deportation order, someone who had given Machado's home address. He said that was not his name, and he did not know anyone by that name. He offered to show them this, his Real ID compliant Virginia driver's license. It has a star in the upper right corner and requires proof of lawful status.
They didn't ask me for any ID. I was telling the officer if I can give him the ID, but he said that just keep my hands up, not moving. And then after that, he told me to get out of the car, and then he put the handcuffs on me. And then he went to me and said, how did I get into this country? And if I was waiting for court or if I have any case. And I told him I was an American citizen. And he looked at his other partner like, smiling, like saying, can you believe this guy? Because he asked the other guy, do you believe him?
Machado said he was uncuffed and immediately released after showing his driver's license. The 2 men with him were taken into custody. He does not know why. The incident has caused him to reflect.
Because, like I say, I was a Trump supporter. I voted for Trump last elections, but because I thought it was going to be the things, like be pointed, like just go against criminals, not every illegal Hispanic looking like that they will assume we are illegals.
So, do you think that's what they're doing now?
That's what they're doing now. They're just following Hispanic people looking like.
Yeah, you look Hispanic, so we're gonna pull you over, ICE, and check all your identification to make sure you're here legally. And do you have anybody illegal with you? Let me check your glove compartment in your trunk. Yeah, I call that just plain out harassment, and that's ridiculous. Again, sometimes in this country, just because of the way you look, can get you under suspicion. Anyhow, we've talked thoroughly, even over the past year before even the election time, of a Project 2025, and how they would like to get rid of a lot of these strings that are tying down government and unify power within the executive branch. And, what do you see happening? You see a lot of these things starting to happen, and the Trump's plan to actually consolidate power to out of the hands of the Senate, the Judiciary Branch, the House, and enable it all into the White House. So they are the ultimate authority. They are the ultimate source of power within the U.S. government. Is that really starting to happen? Check it out.
President Donald Trump is using a popular conservative legal theory to
restore that original vision of the presidency that the Constitution creates,
where I have the right to do whatever I want as president.
Like fire thousands of federal workers, dismantle entire agencies, and oversee what were created as independent regulatory agencies. The Supreme Court will be the deciding factor on this executive power reach that critics say
is far more extreme, but which I would argue, fundamentally change how the country runs.
Here's the legal theory and the point of President Trump's executive actions and why the Supreme Court might allow this expansion of executive power. The ideology is called the unitary executive theory, that Article 2 of the Constitution, which creates the president, puts all of the executive power in a single unitary president.
This is not new, and it's not a theory. It's a description of what the framers did in Article 2.
Read Article 2, which gives the president powers that you wouldn't believe.
But there are still questions about just how much power and over what. It's well established in the Constitution that the president oversees these cabinet agencies. What's not as defined are independent agencies, things like the FTC, SEC, CFPB, largely economic watchdog and regulatory agencies created by Congress and signed into law by the president. They were designed to be insulated from politics and changing administrations, but they're Trump's primary target. In one executive order, President Trump brought these independent agencies under the executive branch.
Trump is arguing there should not be these independent agencies.
Michael Waldman runs the Brennan Center at NYU Law and has written extensively about the dangers of the unitary executive theory.
It would undo a lot of what we rely on now to regulate the economy, to police the stock market, to assure competition in markets.
That executive order cites Article 2 and the unitary executive theory that says that all employees are subject to the president's supervision. It's his justification for firing, so far, thousands of them.
He's trying to act horizontally, make all the heads of the federal executive agencies responsible to him, and then he's also trying to act vertically.
John Yoo has long advocated for the theory. During the Bush administration, he argued in the torture memos that Article 2 gave the president executive authority to use enhanced interrogation techniques.
President Trump is saying, look back at that unitary executive theory. Why should all those hundreds of thousands of employees be protected from removal too?
And Trump has fired top officials at some of these independent agencies.
The Constitution is clear that when it comes to principal governmental officials, that the president appoints with the advice and consent of the Senate. So it's kind of a harder question. Under what circumstances can Congress place restrictions on the president's ability to remove someone?
It's a harder question, but not a new one. In the 1930s, President FDR fired William Humphrey, the head of the FTC, for political reasons. The Supreme Court ruled the Constitution did not give illimitable power of removal to the president, and the chairman could only be removed for cause.
What the Trump administration is likely to ask the Supreme Court to do, and there's a chance they will, is to overturn that case.
And Trump has also claimed that it's his right as the executive to stop payments that Congress has authorized, called impoundment, which goes against a 1970s law.
This disaster of a law is clearly unconstitutional, a blatant violation of the separation of powers.
It's an aggressive and novel conception of the unitary executive theory.
It is an audacious power grab, cloaked in legalistic language, and it's going to be up to the Supreme Court to stand up to it.
It's quite plausible that President Trump is intentionally creating a test case.
In a case 5 years ago about whether the president could remove the head of CFPB, the court found he could. Justice Thomas and Justice Gorsuch argued that the previous precedent protecting independent agencies is an unfortunate example of the court's failure to apply the Constitution as written, and that those agencies encroach on the power of the executive.
If the Supreme Court agrees with the maximalist and extreme interpretation of the unitary executive theory, in the cases that will be coming before it, it would upend much of the economy and really have us far closer to the control of a king than a president affected by the rule of law and checks and balances.
People elected me to do the job, and I'm doing it.
I would say we don't really have a true separation of powers fight here because this Congress supports President Trump.
A lot of this comes down to what should the role of government be in protecting consumers, protecting the environment, and so on. Whatever other legal dimensions there are, this would likely make it so that much of the time these independent agencies would have their wings clipped by the executive branch.
Yeah, interesting. So one swoop of the pen, and Trump changed a whole lot, put them all underneath his power, and that's why he's just offing everybody. And as you know, and then created another department, DOGE, so that, he could knock some more people off. And they've lost, 30%, I think, 30%, and they're looking at the end of this month, I believe, to cut some more. So we'll see how all these different agencies that are out there to help assist and run the government, how it all goes. Anyhow, hey, wow. Try to absorb that one and put it in your ear, see if we can get her figured out. But let's get into another one that I like to call Dude. Really? What the fuck? And our what the fuck moment here is kind of interesting because it actually has to do with illegal dumping. And I know some, you know what I'm talking about if you live around in some areas that people just throw their shit anywhere. It doesn't matter. Used tires, dead mattresses, anything that they don't want to pay the landfill to get rid of, or that they may not have heavy pickup, whatever the case may be. But look what some people stumbled across in this illegal dump site.
How did a bunch of safes end up dumped alongside a remote Los Angeles freeway? And what is in them? Jim Murray speaks with a couple reunited with their safe, hoping the valuables are still inside.
It's the Valley of the Stolen Safes. A volunteer cleanup crew stumbled upon the secret dumping site, which was apparently being used by a burglary ring.
We're going to need every single person to pull. Let's get this safe. It's about 600 pounds.
That stolen safe and a half dozen others were found at an illegal dumping site miles away from where they were stolen. They were all forced open with important documents and other valuables still inside.
There's something in there.
Good Samaritans David Weisberg and Nancy Nicoloro made the startling discovery along a remote portion of the Los Angeles freeway.
I was completely shocked and amazed and bewildered.
They managed to physically haul the heavy safes up the steep ravine. Inside, they found documents and priceless family mementos that the burglars had left behind. They then took the next step and started tracking down the rightful owners. So you connected the documents with the jewelry, and the people must be stunned.
Stunned.
Ken and Rhonda Ramage were among those whose personal safe was stolen by the burglary ring.
It's almost like surgical precision. They had something in mind. Looking at the video, they went right to the garage, to the safe, and then rolled it out the side door.
Their safe had been cut wide open. Many of the valuables were gone, but some documents were still inside, apparently of no interest to the thieves.
So this is your mom's marriage certificate.
Yes.
From 1947. You have Social Security cards for you, Rhonda, passport.
We are so appreciative, can't be more thankful for doing the right thing and going to the effort of trying to find us.
All righty then. Seriously, this cleanup crew volunteers, and then they stumble upon. I mean, that was like a lot of safes down there. So the little burglary ring, once they broke into a safe, they just chucked it down the side of that hill, and these people came across it. At least some people were able to find some of their valuables, some passports, IDs, and this and that. But hey, good for them. Good for them. Hey, let's get on to another part that I know everybody likes, and they want to know who is going to be this week's Asshole of the Week. Well, let's say that this happened at a track meet, and apparently one of the runners adapted what I would like to call the Tanya Harding theory when it came to racing. Check it out. Well, there's one sure way to take out your opponent now, isn't it? Just whacked her right in the back of her damn head as they're running that. A well-deserved asshole of the week. Just for you. Anyhow, hey, that wraps up the show, folks. I'm ready to get on out of here, let you enjoy the rest of your Wednesday evening. I want to thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with me. I hope you enjoyed everything that I presented to you. I hope you got educated on a couple of different things when it came to what's happening in the U.S. government, what's happening over in Ukraine and the UN being totally upset, understandably. And in any regards, hey, keep all these people, all these things in our prayers, and hopefully faith over fear, God will find a way to keep everything calm and cool. But anyhow, until next week, folks, I appreciate you once again, and we are so out of here. Enjoy this little clip. I think you'll like this parody cartoon I got for you. Have a great one. Enjoy your weekend. Bye now.
I call our second Cabinet He-Man Women Haters meeting to order.
You fired all my people, Elon.
Doge, you, Marco.
This is exciting already.
Your State Department had too much power over my rocket company, so I doged it.
Fellas, we should stop fighting with each other and fight with our real enemy. Women! In the words of the great Andrew Tate, women belong in the home. They cannot drive and are a man's property.
That's how I feel about bears and whales.
So from now on, I am signing an executive order that a woman cannot speak unless a man says it is okay. Any objections?
No objection.
Objection! You don't have a mandate. Excuse me, get him out.
Sergeant at Arms, remove this kid from the cabinet meeting now.
Come on, you radical Antifa. I'll make mincemeat out of ya.
Any news, Pete?
Yes, boss. I fired a gay plane.
Now that's the department fighting the woke mind virus.
Pam Bondi? You can talk.
Well, I found the Epstein files. And I'll totally get rid of them.
How about you, RFK Jr.?
I got rid of some more vaccines and am making measles sexy again.
Good work, everyone. Elon, don't put a frog down little Marco's pants. And slow Doge down this week until I can distract the press with a war on Mexico. Now let's plan to tariff New York and California. Someone get me some cheeseburgers? All this cabineting makes me hungry. Steven, did my new Secret Service guys give you a wedgie? I gotta talk to those two.